Ma'am, this can't be right. The hum of the plane echoed softly. First class was calm, quiet, almost too quiet. Then, heels clicked. A white flight attendant, late 40s, short blonde bob, neat navy uniform, stopped abruptly mid-walk. Her eyes locked on a woman seated in 1A. Not just any woman. A black woman. Mid-30s. Dressed in a sleek white silk blouse, beige high-waisted trousers. Gold watch. Curly hair pulled back in a low bun. She sat straight. Confident. Reading a leather-bound notebook. The attendant's brows pinched. Her eyes darted to the ticket stub in the woman's hand. Then back to the seat number. She didn't speak. Just stared. Around her, a few passengers glanced up. A white man 2 rows behind whispered to his wife. "That's not a usual first-class face, is it?" The wife hushed him, but didn't look away. Still, the woman in 1A didn't blink. Didn't look up. She turned another page. And that's when the flight attendant took a sharp breath, fixed her posture, and stepped forward with a practiced smile. "Ma'am, I think there's been a mistake." The smile didn't reach her eyes. The tension? It just sat there. Like turbulence before the drop. "This is first class." Naomi slowly looked up. Her eyes met the flight attendant's, calm, unreadable. She didn't flinch. Didn't smile either. Just closed her notebook, placed it neatly on her lap, and asked, "Is there a problem?" The attendant's polite mask cracked for half a second. She hesitated. Then cleared her throat and said, "Yes, actually. This is first class." Naomi raised an eyebrow slightly. Nothing more. From the corner, a younger male passenger leaned toward his wife, muttering. She probably wandered in from economy. Someone giggled softly behind them. Naomi didn't respond. She simply reached down, retrieved her boarding pass, and held it out, between 2 fingers. The flight attendant took it, reluctantly. She stared. Then stared again. Seat 1A. Name, Naomi Williams. Her lips pressed tight. "Just 1 moment, please." She turned and walked briskly toward the front galley, radio already in hand. Naomi calmly opened her notebook again. But her eyes, they scanned the cabin. And she saw it. Every pair of eyes. Watching. Judging. Waiting for her to be removed. But she wasn't moving. Not yet. "You don't look like you belong here." The cabin felt heavier now. Passengers weren't reading anymore. They were watching. Naomi didn't look up. She flipped a page in her notebook, as if nothing had happened. But eyes were everywhere. From behind her, a woman whispered, "Maybe she's someone's assistant?" Another voice replied, "Maybe she's lost." That's when Lauren returned. She walked slower this time, holding something in her hand. A second flight attendant, younger, more nervous, followed a few steps behind. Lauren stopped beside Naomi again. "We're still having trouble confirming your booking, ma'am." The words were calm, but her tone, sharp. Naomi looked at her, finally, directly, and said nothing. "You can't just sit here without proper clearance," Lauren added, firmer this time. The second attendant fidgeted. She looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't. Naomi blinked once. Then leaned forward. "I've already given you my boarding pass." Lauren gave a tight smile. "Yes. But you understand, some people, they print things. Fake upgrades happen. Especially lately." Naomi's lips parted, just a little. She almost smiled. "Let me guess," she said softly. "You don't think I look like someone who belongs in first class?" The cabin froze again. Someone gasped quietly. A man's hand slowly reached for his phone to record. Lauren didn't respond. But her silence said everything. And Naomi? She leaned back. Calm. Unmoving. Waiting. Call the pilot, then. The car gleamed under the cabin lights. Jet black. No logos. Just power. Lauren stared at it, her eyes flicking between the car and Naomi's face. Passengers nearby leaned forward. Whispers turned into quiet murmurs. That's not a regular card. Is that a centurion? Wait, who is she? Naomi's voice remained steady, low. Call the pilot. Lauren hesitated. That moment, too long. Naomi added. Or, would you rather keep embarrassing yourself in front of all these people? The younger flight attendant took a small step back. Her face was pale now, anxious. Lauren tried to regain control. I don't take orders from passengers. Naomi gave the faintest smile. Then take this as a suggestion from someone you clearly don't know well enough. That line cut through the air. Someone in row 3 pulled out their phone and began recording, subtly. Lauren tightened her grip on the manifest sheet in her hand. Her eyes darted nervously toward the cockpit door. And for the first time, she looked unsure. Call the pilot, then. The car gleamed under the cabin lights. Jet black. No logos. Just power. Lauren stared at it, her eyes flicking between the car and Naomi's face. Passengers nearby leaned forward. Whispers turned into quiet murmurs. That's not a regular card. Is that a centurion? Wait, who is she? Naomi's voice remained steady, low. Call the pilot. Lauren hesitated. That moment, too long. Naomi added. Or, would you rather keep embarrassing yourself in front of all these people? The younger flight attendant took a small step back. Her face was pale now, anxious. Lauren tried to regain control. I don't take orders from passengers. Naomi gave the faintest smile. Then take this as a suggestion from someone you clearly don't know well enough. That line cut through the air. Someone in row 3 pulled out their phone and began recording, subtly. Lauren tightened her grip on the manifest sheet in her hand. Her eyes darted nervously toward the cockpit door. And for the first time, she looked unsure. Something's not right. Lauren stood frozen, gripping her tablet manifest, knuckles white. Naomi had gone back to her notebook. Calm. Unbothered. As if none of this had happened. But it had. And now, the cabin knew it. Behind them, the man in row 3 whispered to his partner. She's not bluffing. I think she's someone important, the woman murmured. Even the older couple across the aisle, who had scoffed earlier, were now exchanging uncertain glances. The younger flight attendant stepped forward and softly said to Lauren, Should I get the captain? Lauren snapped. No. I'll handle it. But her voice lacked conviction now. She turned back to Naomi, who hadn't looked up once since the last exchange. We're reviewing things with the gate team, Lauren said, louder than needed, more for the audience than for Naomi. Please remain seated until we verify your status. Naomi flipped another page in her notebook. Didn't even answer. Didn't need to. Because now, it was Lauren who looked like the one out of place. Why is she still sitting there? Lauren stormed toward the front galley, pretending confidence. But the crack in her posture? Obvious. Behind her, passengers stirred. Whispers grew louder now, they weren't even hiding it. If she's wrong, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Why hasn't the captain come out? Did you see that card? One passenger near the back pressed a call button. Another flagged down the junior attendant. Is there a problem up there? She asked, almost smirking. The young attendant, clearly nervous, replied. We're looking into it. In first class, Naomi sat motionless, legs crossed, notebook still open. But her eyes. They were watching everything now. She didn't need to speak. She could feel the cabin turning. Not against her, but against the woman who tried to embarrass her. And yet, she wasn't done waiting. Because he hadn't arrived yet. And when he did, everything would change. Where's the captain? Back in the galley, Lauren gripped the phone on the wall. She had called the gate. Called operations. Still, no confirmation against Naomi. But no confirmation for her either. And that uncertainty? It was cracking her polished mask. She turned to the junior attendant, snapping. Go check the manifest. Again. Line by line. Meanwhile, up front, passengers shifted in their seats. Eyes flicked from Naomi to the cockpit door. Where's the captain? Someone whispered. He should have come out by now. Maybe he knows who she is. Naomi hadn't moved. But her fingers now tapped softly against her notebook, rhythmic, patient. She knew they were all watching. But she wasn't performing. She was waiting. Because when he stepped out from behind that door, it wouldn't be a defense. It would be a reveal. Ma'am, we're sorry. But still no update. Lauren returned from the galley, slower this time. Her face was tighter, voice quieter, but laced with forced professionalism. She stood just beside Naomi again, but didn't lean in this time. No more quiet scolding. Just tension. Ma'am, we've contacted the gate team, but they haven't sent confirmation yet. Naomi didn't even look at her. Instead, she calmly replied. So you're holding up a full cabin, because you assume I don't belong? Passengers shifted again. A woman muttered. She's got a point. Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it. No good answer. Just then. A ding. The cockpit door clicked. It began to open. Everyone turned. A silhouette stepped through. Tall. Confident. Pilot uniform sharp, gold stripes glinting under the overhead lights. And Naomi? She looked up. For the first time. Her expression didn't change. But her fingers stopped tapping. Because finally, he had arrived. Ma'am, we're sorry. But still no update. Lauren returned from the galley, slower this time. Her face was tighter, voice quieter, but laced with forced professionalism. She stood just beside Naomi again, but didn't lean in this time. No more quiet scolding. Just tension. Ma'am, we've contacted the gate team, but they haven't sent confirmation yet. Naomi didn't even look at her. Instead, she calmly replied. So you're holding up a full cabin, because you assume I don't belong? Passengers shifted again. A woman muttered. She's got a point. Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it. No good answer. Just then. A ding. The cockpit door clicked. It began to open. Everyone turned. A silhouette stepped through. Tall. Confident. Pilot uniform sharp, gold stripes glinting under the overhead lights. And Naomi? She looked up. For the first time. Her expression didn't change. But her fingers stopped tapping. Because finally, he had arrived. Wait. You two know each other? The silence broke, not with words, but with shock. Passengers blinked. One woman near the front whispered to her husband. Wait, she knows the captain? Lauren forced a smile. Awkward. Cracked. Captain Arthur, I didn't realize you two knew each other. Arthur turned, his tone crisp. We've flown together more times than I can count. She's one of the main reasons I'm in this cockpit. Another gasp. Arthur then looked directly at Naomi. I wasn't told you were boarding today. Naomi replied softly. Didn't need to be. I like watching people when they don't know who's watching back. The crowd felt that. Lauren tried to laugh it off. Of course, just a misunderstanding. Arthur didn't smile. A very public one. Then louder, addressing the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. Ms. Williams is a valued guest, and we're honored to have her aboard today. Eyes turned. Respect shifted. And Naomi? Still poised. But now, she was done waiting. You owe her an apology. Captain Arthur gave Lauren a long look, then turned and walked back toward the cockpit without another word. The door shut behind him, softly, but with finality. Now, all eyes turned to Lauren. Her face, burning red beneath the makeup. She tried to regain control, adjusting her jacket, scanning the cabin like nothing had happened. But it had. And a voice called it out. From row 2, a middle-aged man stood. You owe her an apology. Lauren blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. The way you treated her, we all saw it. Then a woman near the aisle added. You didn't ask anyone else for a boarding pass. You called her out. Loud. In front of all of us. What if she hadn't known the captain? Passenger after passenger joined in, voices stacking like bricks. And Naomi? Still seated. Still silent. But now, she wasn't alone. This isn't going away. Lauren took a shaky step back. Her voice tried to steady itself. Look, we're all just trying to follow procedure. But no one was buying it. A young woman from row 5 stood, holding up her phone. I recorded the whole thing. You targeted her. Another passenger added. And now you're pretending like it didn't happen? Lauren looked to the junior attendant for backup. But the younger woman lowered her gaze, uncomfortable. The air in the cabin was no longer neutral. It was charged. Embarrassed. Angry. And Naomi? She finally spoke again, her voice smooth, clear. Don't worry. I won't raise my voice. She slowly stood. Eyes followed every movement. Because I don't need to. Lauren swallowed hard. Passengers murmured again, some with admiration, others with indignation. One man whispered. She doesn't just belong here, she might own the jet. Naomi looked straight at Lauren now. This isn't going away. And neither am I. Let's get something straight. Naomi stood fully now, tall, composed, unshaken. The cabin fell into an eerie silence again. Phones were recording. Eyes locked in. She looked around, slowly, deliberately, addressing everyone. Let's get something straight. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't demand anything. I showed my ticket, sat in my seat, and waited. Her eyes landed back on Lauren. I waited while you made an assumption. A few passengers nodded, subtly, but in full support now. Naomi took a step forward, not aggressive, but commanding. Now, you can choose to correct that assumption. Or double down on it, in front of all these cameras. Lauren looked trapped. The younger flight attendant whispered. Maybe you should apologize. But Lauren didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't breathe. And Naomi? She didn't need her to. Because power doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just stands up. You're not in charge anymore. Lauren's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her badge. Passengers weren't just staring, they were judging. Recording. Waiting. Naomi didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just said, calm and direct. You're not in charge anymore. Lauren stiffened. Excuse me? Naomi took another slow step forward. You lost that right when you decided who was worthy of this seat, before you knew anything about me. From behind, a man in business class whispered. She's got more poise than the whole crew. Lauren finally snapped. I was just doing my job. Naomi replied instantly. No. You were doing what you thought your job allowed. She leaned slightly closer. But see, real authority doesn't come from a badge or a uniform. It comes from how you treat people when you think no one's watching. Lauren turned red again, but didn't speak. Because now, she knew everyone was watching. And Naomi was just getting started. Who is she? Lauren stepped back, silence swallowing her words. But the cabin? It was buzzing. Quietly, carefully, but undeniably, buzzing. Passengers whispered. Did you hear the way she said that? She sounds like someone in charge. She must be someone powerful. From row 6, a teenage girl mouthed to her mom. Mom, I think she owns something big. And then, the older man in row 1 leaned slightly into the aisle, narrowing his eyes at Naomi. He reached for his phone. He wasn't just a businessman. He was a bank board member. And he'd seen that face before. On a donation check. 6 zeros. Quietly, he pulled up a photo online, scrolling, searching. Meanwhile, Naomi turned to the younger flight attendant. Softly. How long until we're airborne? The girl stuttered. We're just waiting for clearance. Maybe 10 minutes? Naomi nodded once. Then you have time to correct what happened here. The girl nodded back, quickly. Genuinely. Because Naomi wasn't making threats. She was giving opportunities. Who is she? Lauren stepped back, silence swallowing her words. But the cabin? It was buzzing. Quietly, carefully, but undeniably, buzzing. Passengers whispered. Did you hear the way she said that? She sounds like someone in charge. She must be someone powerful. From row 6, a teenage girl mouthed to her mom. Mom, I think she owns something big. And then, the older man in row 1 leaned slightly into the aisle, narrowing his eyes at Naomi. He reached for his phone. He wasn't just a businessman. He was a bank board member. And he'd seen that face before. On a donation check. 6 zeros. Quietly, he pulled up a photo online, scrolling, searching. Meanwhile, Naomi turned to the younger flight attendant. Softly. How long until we're airborne? The girl stuttered. We're just waiting for clearance. Maybe 10 minutes? Naomi nodded once. Then you have time to correct what happened here. The girl nodded back, quickly. Genuinely. Because Naomi wasn't making threats. She was giving opportunities. You don't treat a woman like that. The whispers had grown louder now. Not gossipy, protective. She gave 10 million? Why didn't the crew know who she was? You don't treat a woman like that, especially not her. Lauren, still standing at the front, could feel it, like a storm forming behind her. Passengers weren't just angry now. They were embarrassed for her. One woman called out from row 4. Ma'am, you really should apologize. Not because she's rich, but because you were wrong. Naomi turned slightly in her seat. I don't need apologies. She looked Lauren in the eyes. I need accountability. The tension was heavy. Then, the cockpit door opened again. Captain Arthur stepped out once more, a tablet in his hand. He didn't speak right away. He walked over to Naomi. Showed her the screen. She nodded slowly. Arthur turned to the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement. She's not just a passenger. Captain Arthur stood tall in the aisle, tablet still in hand. The entire cabin fell silent, again. Even the hum of the engines felt quieter now. He took a breath, and then spoke clearly. This flight is being partially funded by a private donation. That donation didn't just cover this aircraft. It helped retrofit our entire fleet with modern safety tech. He turned toward Naomi. The donor's name? Another pause. Then, louder, firmer. Naomi Williams. Gasps. Audible. Someone actually clapped once, before stopping, unsure. But the mood had changed. Arthur continued. She's not just a passenger. She's the reason many of us have this job. She doesn't need this seat. She chose it. Lauren's face had gone pale. The junior attendant looked at Naomi now with wide-eyed respect. And the rest of the plane? They weren't whispering anymore. They were watching a woman who, in silence, had just flipped the entire power dynamic in the air. This seat's always been hers. Captain Arthur gave Naomi a respectful nod and stepped aside. All eyes turned to Lauren now. There was nowhere left to hide. No excuse. No policy. Just her and the weight of what she had done. Naomi stood again, calm as ever. She gently adjusted her sleeve and looked at Lauren, her voice low but firm. Do you still need to see my ticket? Lauren's lips parted. No sound came out. Passengers waited. Arthur looked at her. Even the junior attendant took a step back, silently distancing herself. A moment passed. Then finally, Lauren spoke. No. Ms. Williams. This seat's always been yours. Naomi gave a single nod. No smugness. No smile. Just quiet acknowledgement. And as she sat back down, a quiet clap began in the back. Then another. Then more. Not loud. Not theatrical. Just respect. For someone who never shouted, but still changed the entire room. Let's talk about who's not seated yet. As the light applause faded, Naomi adjusted her seatbelt and glanced around the cabin. But her expression shifted, no longer focused on Lauren. Now, she was looking deeper. She turned to the junior flight attendant. Is everyone boarded? The girl looked down at her tablet, confused. Almost. We're still waiting on final clearance. 2 passengers are delayed. Naomi nodded. Then spoke just loud enough for those nearby to hear. One of them is a single mother with her son. The other is a young scholarship student flying for the first time. Lauren's eyes widened. How do you know that? Naomi finally looked her way again. Because I read the manifest. The cabin blinked in confusion. Naomi continued. And because I funded those 2 seats. Whispers returned. Not judgment this time, admiration. Naomi wasn't here to make a scene. She was here to make sure others got a seat, too. The junior attendant softly asked. Would you like us to hold the flight for them? Naomi responded without hesitation. Yes. And give them window seats. That's the kind of leader she is. The junior attendant nodded and walked briskly toward the front to inform the gate staff. Passengers whispered again, but it wasn't gossip. It was respect. A man in business class leaned toward the woman beside him. Did you hear that? She paid for other people's flights. People she doesn't even know. The woman replied. That's the kind of leader she is. Back near row 6, the teenage girl who had been watching everything whispered to her mom. I want to be like her. Her mom smiled softly. Then remember this moment. Lauren, still stiff, now looked more confused than anything. She had judged Naomi based on an assumption. And now that assumption was unraveling in every direction. Naomi wasn't just rich. She was intentional. Thoughtful. Strategic. Human. And above all, she noticed things no one else did. And now, the entire plane was noticing her. There with her. A soft chime echoed overhead, the boarding door reopened briefly. Everyone turned. 2 figures stepped in. A black woman, dressed modestly, breathing heavily from rushing. Her young son, maybe 7 or 8, clinging to her hand, eyes wide with nerves. Behind them, a college-aged girl entered, carrying nothing but a backpack and clutching her boarding pass like it was gold. They looked around, unsure. Out of place. Until the junior attendant greeted them with a warm smile. Welcome aboard. We've saved your seats. She motioned them forward. Passengers watched as they passed row after row, some smiling, some nodding. When they reached Naomi's row, the boy looked up at her, eyes big and curious. Naomi leaned forward slightly, smiling. "Window's all yours." The boy beamed and took his seat beside her. The mother looked like she wanted to say something, anything, but words failed her. Naomi simply gave a nod of reassurance. And from the back of the plane, a whisper was heard. They're with her. Not because she was rich. Not because she was famous. But because she made space for people who had none. This cabin feels different now. As the new passengers settled in, something shifted in the air. The usual rush to claim overhead space. The grumbles about delays. Gone. Instead, people sat quietly, respectfully. Watching Naomi. Even the boy beside her, once jittery, now leaned into the window, relaxed and smiling. In row 4, a woman whispered to her husband. "This cabin feels different now. Like people actually see each other." The captain's voice came over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We are now fully boarded and cleared for takeoff. Please fasten your seatbelts, and remember to treat each other with kindness." Passengers looked at each other, a few smiled at that last part. Lauren stood quietly in the galley, no longer pretending to be in charge. The junior flight attendant moved through the aisle, this time not rushing, just doing her job with purpose. And Naomi? She looked straight ahead. Not proud. Not smug. Just peaceful. Because when you know who you are, you don't need to prove it. Flying higher than ever. The plane lifted into the sky. Clouds drifted below like soft mountains. And inside the cabin, a calm settled. Not just from altitude, but from something deeper. Naomi glanced out the window beside the boy. He had fallen asleep mid-sentence, a smile still on his face. The mother whispered, "Thank you for this." Naomi didn't answer with words. She just gently tucked the boy's blanket around him. From a few rows back, the scholarship girl was watching her. Eyes wide, inspired, almost in disbelief that this woman was real. Naomi looked around once more, not to check, but to see. Every face. Every soul. Every story that boarded that plane. And then she leaned back in her seat. Closed her eyes. And smiled. Not because she proved them wrong. But because she lifted others up. And that's how you fly higher than anyone expects. Fade out. This is her legacy. Back in the sky, a soft hum filled the cabin. The boy shifted in his sleep. Naomi adjusted the seatbelt across his lap with quiet care. Across the aisle, the scholarship girl opened her notebook. Not to study, but to write. She scribbled the heading. "The day I sat across from Grace." She began writing about Naomi, the way she held herself, how she never raised her voice but still changed the room. 2 rows behind, the older businessman who'd recognized her was drafting an email. "We should consider her for our next keynote speaker." Or board member. Word was spreading, and not on the news. It was spreading through people. The kind who'd never forget this flight. Because Naomi didn't just fix a wrong. She left behind a new standard. A message from the sky. Halfway through the flight, the seatbelt sign turned off. Some passengers got up. Others pulled out books, headphones. But a small group? They were still watching Naomi. Whispers turned to quiet conversations. She didn't yell once. She never even said who she was, until they found out. That's class. In the galley, the junior flight attendant leaned against the counter, whispering into her crew phone. "You're not gonna believe who's on this flight." Lauren, still pale, stood nearby, silent. She had been avoiding eye contact the entire time. Suddenly, Naomi stood. She walked calmly toward the lavatory. But every step she took made people straighten up just a bit more. Not out of fear, but out of respect. One man even whispered, "I feel like we're all in church." It wasn't about money. It was about presence. Naomi's quiet dignity had become louder than any first-class announcement. The apology everyone waited for. As Naomi returned to her seat, the cabin hushed again. Lauren, still standing stiff at the front, looked torn. She clutched the service manual, as if rules could shield her now. Then, a voice from row 5 broke the silence. "Aren't you going to apologize?" Lauren flinched. She looked toward the captain's door, but Arthur didn't come. Then another voice chimed in, firmer. "You embarrassed yourself." "Not her." And another. "Do the right thing, Lauren." The pressure wasn't angry. It was united. Steady. And Lauren knew, if she didn't speak now, this moment would define her forever. Slowly, she walked down the aisle. Stopped beside Naomi's row. Passengers watched like it was a movie. Lauren's voice cracked. "Ms. Williams. I was wrong." She looked like she wanted to say more. But Naomi just looked at her. Calm. Steady. Then finally, "Let's make sure it doesn't happen to the next person." It was never about the seat. Lauren stood frozen, unsure what to do next. Passengers remained silent, but alert. Naomi gently shifted her posture, then looked up at her. People think power is about control. But real power? She glanced around the cabin, at the mother, the scholarship girl, the watching passengers. It's about how you use your seat, to make room for others. Lauren lowered her gaze. Naomi didn't gloat. She didn't even expect praise. She simply turned back to the sleeping boy beside her, still peaceful, unaware he was part of something bigger. The woman behind Naomi whispered to her husband. She didn't just take back her seat. She gave all of us a reason to look at our own. Naomi smiled faintly, not because of victory, but because the message had landed. Without her needing to shout. The call that changed company policy. In the cockpit, Captain Arthur sat back, processing everything. He opened the internal airline messaging app on his tablet. Tapped into the executive channel. Typed just one sentence. "We need to revisit first-class training and inclusivity protocols immediately." A reply came within seconds from the airline's VP of Operations. Agreed. Was this about Naomi Williams' flight? Arthur didn't respond right away. He looked back toward the cabin, toward Naomi. Passengers weren't restless. They weren't bored. They were reflective. He finally typed. She didn't say a word about punishment. But somehow, we all feel accountable. Back in the cabin, the young scholarship girl was still writing. Filling a page with the title. The woman who never needed to raise her voice. Even in the sky. Naomi was shifting the ground beneath an entire system. She made me rethink everything. Lauren sat alone in the galley now. She wasn't serving coffee. She wasn't checking forms. She was thinking. The junior flight attendant quietly approached and hesitated before sitting beside her. "You okay?" Lauren exhaled, still shaken. I was so quick to judge her. I didn't even ask her name. I just assumed. The junior nodded. Me too, a little, at first. Lauren looked up. But she didn't shame me. She redirected me. A pause. She made me rethink everything I thought I knew about this job. The junior smiled slightly. Then maybe that's why she didn't speak louder. She wanted us to hear ourselves. Lauren looked toward the cabin again, where Naomi sat peacefully beside the child she'd lifted, without lifting a finger. And for the first time all flight, Lauren's face softened. You just changed my son's life. As the flight cruised smoothly, the mother beside Naomi leaned closer. Her voice trembled with emotion. I don't know what to say. Naomi turned gently toward her. The mother looked down at her sleeping son. He's been scared of people ever since what happened at his last school. This is the first time I've seen him relax in public again. Tears welled up in her eyes. You didn't just give him a seat. You gave him back his safety. Naomi reached over, softly placed a hand on hers. He didn't need me. He just needed to be seen. The mother wiped her eyes. Well, today, he saw the right person. You just changed my son's life. Naomi gave a warm smile, then glanced out the window again. Sometimes, the smallest seats hold the biggest transformations. This story will land before the plane does. In row 9, a teenage boy quietly posted a photo on social media. It was blurry, taken over a seat, but Naomi's calm posture beside the boy was unmistakable. His caption read, "She never raised her voice. But she changed the whole flight." The post began to gain likes, retweets, shares. A woman 2 rows ahead posted a short video of Naomi helping the boy with his seatbelt. No filters. No edits. Just grace in motion. Within minutes, a trending hashtag began to form. Hashtag Naomi Flight Lesson. Back in the galley, a crew member got a message on her watch. Are you flying with Naomi Williams? Is the story real? The junior attendant looked up and smiled. It's better than the story. No press release. No announcement. But the message? It was already landing, in hearts, homes, and headlines. She came here to fly. We left here changed. The captain's voice echoed through the cabin. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin our descent shortly. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened. Passengers stirred, slowly returning trays, adjusting seats. But this time? No rush. No impatience. Just reflection. The scholarship girl tucked her notebook into her bag, her hands shaking slightly, not from nerves, but from inspiration. The older businessman glanced again at Naomi, then down at his laptop, deleting a speech draft he no longer believed in. In the galley, Lauren stepped forward and did something she never had before. She picked up the intercom mic and paused. Then softly, "Thank you for flying with us today. We hope this flight gave you more than just a destination." She glanced toward Naomi's seat. "Some passengers remind us why we took this job in the first place." She clicked off. The cabin was silent. And someone whispered, "She came here to fly. We left here changed." She walked off, but stayed with everyone. The plane touched down smoothly. The wheels met the tarmac. But the silence inside the cabin said everything. No one wanted the flight to end. As the seatbelt sign dinged off, people stood. But didn't push, didn't rush. Row by row, they let others pass. Like they were still following Naomi's quiet example. When it was finally her row's turn, Naomi stood. She reached for her bag, helped the little boy beside her down gently, and gave the mother a reassuring smile. The junior flight attendant met her by the exit, eyes glassy. "Thank you for everything." Naomi nodded softly. Just before stepping off the plane, she paused at the cockpit. Arthur turned in his seat and stood up. No salute. No title exchange. Just one sentence. "It was an honor to fly with you." Naomi smiled and walked out into the bright sunlight. But the truth? She never really left. Because on that flight, with silence, grace, and power, she stayed behind in every seat, every heart, every single mind. Fade to black.